Picture this: crystal clear turquoise waters, golden sunsets in Valletta, diving deep into the Blue Lagoon, and parasailing high above Sliema's coastline. This is the Malta that most tourists see. And I've been there myself. I've explored Valletta's narrow streets, taken a ferry to Gozo, swam in the Blue Lagoon, and even gone scuba diving under those surreal waters. But here's the thing: behind that postcard perfect beauty, Malta hides something far more intriguing and far more controversial. This tiny island nation, smaller than some London boroughs, runs a multi-billion dollar shadow economy. It sells EU passports to billionaires, licenses online casinos that operate worldwide, and once even tried to reinvent itself as the blockchain island. So the question is, how did Malta, a country with almost no natural resources, end up becoming one of Europe's most profitable financial playgrounds? That's the story we are going to unpack today: the secret billion-dollar economy of Malta. Now, let's put things into perspective. Malta is tiny, just 316 square kilometers. That's smaller than the city of Birmingham in the UK. And yet, for centuries, it's been one of the most fought over pieces of land in the world. From the Knights of St. John, who built massive fortresses in Valletta, to Napoleon, who invaded, to the British, who turned Malta into a naval base, to World War II, when Malta was bombed more heavily than London. Why? Because of geography. Malta sits right in the middle of the Mediterranean, between Europe and Africa, east and west. Control Malta and you control the sea lanes. Now fast forward to today. The wars are gone, but Malta's strategic importance didn't disappear. Instead, Malta figured out a new way to make itself valuable: money. And not just any money. We are talking about selling passports, gambling empires, and crypto heavens. Let's start with the most controversial scheme: Malta's Golden Passport Program. Back in 2014, Malta started selling citizenship for around 650,000 euros, plus a hefty property purchase. You could buy a Maltese passport. And here's the kicker: Malta is part of the European Union. So buying a Maltese passport doesn't just give you access to Malta, it gives you access to all of Europe. So who bought them? Well, the Russians, Middle Eastern elites, Chinese billionaires, people looking for a safe haven, tax advantages, and freedom of movement. The program brought in hundreds of millions of euros to Malta's economy, but it also sparked outrage. The EU accused Malta of selling European identity to the highest bidder. Some countries even argued that Malta's passports were a backdoor for dirty money into Europe. Still, the scheme made Malta rich, and for a small country with limited options, it was a shortcut to serious revenue. Now, let's talk about Malta's biggest money machine: online gambling. Today, if you have ever played an online casino, poker site, or betting app, chances are the license comes from Malta. Why Malta? Because Malta was one of the first countries in Europe to legalize and regulate online gambling back in the early 2000s. They offered low taxes, easy licensing, and access to the European market. The result: over 300 gaming companies set up shop in Malta. Think about that. A country with fewer than 600,000 people became the headquarters of a global gambling empire worth billions. And when I walked through Sliema and Valletta, I noticed something interesting. Behind the cafes and seafront views, you'll find office buildings full of iGaming companies. These are not just tourist attractions, they are the hidden core of Malta's economy. But here is the dark side. Critics say Malta enabled shady operators, weak oversight, and money laundering through gambling firms. In fact, Italian mafia investigations have repeatedly linked gambling businesses in Malta to organized crime. Still, for Malta, gambling became the new oil. And just when you thought Malta had peaked with gambling, they decided to try something even riskier: crypto. In 2017, Malta branded itself the blockchain island. It promised clear regulations, crypto friendly laws, and tax advantages. Big names like Binance, one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, announced they were moving to Malta. Suddenly, Malta was on the map as the Silicon Valley of crypto. But here's the twist: regulation didn't keep up. Crypto companies rushed in, but oversight was very weak. Within a few years, most big cup players quietly left. Still, the experiment showed something important. Malta wasn't afraid to gamble with its economy. Tourism and beaches bring in visitors, but its financial innovation or financial loopholes, depending on how you see it, that brings in billions. But here is where the story takes a darker turn. In 2017, investigative journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia was assassinated by a car bomb. She had been exposing corruption at the highest levels of Maltese politics, including the Golden Passport program and shady financial networks. Her death shocked Europe. It sparked protests in Valletta, calls for justice, and EU investigations. Malta, once seen as a sunny, safe holiday island, suddenly looked like a place where money and power could silence critics. And it wasn't just the passport scheme or gambling. The EU accused Malta of being too soft on money laundering, of, of letting corrupt elites get away with too much. Even as tourists were sunbathing in the Blue Lagoon, behind the scenes, Malta was fighting for its democratic reputation. So the question is, where does Malta go from here? On one hand, it's an incredible success story: a tiny island with no oil, no gas, and almost no land turned itself into a financial hub worth billions. It sells passports, licenses, gambling, flirted with crypto, and made itself wealthy. But on the other hand, it's walking on thin ice. The EU is cracking down on golden passports, regulators are tightening rules on gambling and crypto, and corruption scandals keep haunting the country. I've seen Malta's beauty firsthand, from scuba diving under its clear waters to parasailing above its coastlines, to wandering through Valletta's historic streets. But behind that beauty is a paradox. Malta is both a Mediterranean paradise and a financial playground. The question is, can it survive being both? Or will the billion-dollar shadow economy that built modern Malta also be the thing that destroys it? And that is the secret billion-dollar economy of Malta.